Well, this is really truly the process of being vulnerable and open because I found, certainly as a kid growing up, a son to immigrants, myself being an immigrant as well, that there were expectations of me. And I always said that I wanted to be potentially an actor or to go into the arts. And they're like, we didn't travel across the world, but you have become this thing here, you know? And so I remember getting that growing up. And then throughout life too, it's sometimes really saying no to yourself by maintaining a relationship. And we should stop doing that.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. On this episode, I take you to a challenge that I'm doing with my community. We've been working on a bucket list challenge. Why? Because it has been discovered that doing a bucket list, research has found that doing a bucket list, crossing things off that we are doing in life, allows us to remember who we are. Some of the things that a bucket list has, we just cross off and it gives us a good feeling like we've checked something off. But there are things that potentially lay dormant in our life, in our dreams, that once we start to take action on them, it brings new life and energy to us. It is that energy, that life force, that actually leads to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. It is rediscovering that turns on the epigenetics of happiness, health, and human potential. If you haven't already, go back and listen to the podcast episodes where we talk about the science behind a bucket list leading to more life and performance. The second episode of that actually demonstrates tools we can use to bring in the bucket list items faster. And on this episode, we actually do a question and answer session for the people who are actually going through this bucket list challenge. Now, it's not too late to join. You could actually join our community and join this challenge with us for free by going to facebook.com/groups/Thrive State. There, interact with the people in our community and get your dreams going as well. Now, before we get into the podcast, let me first welcome all the newcomers to the Thrive State podcast. This is a place where I have the privilege of interviewing world thought leaders and experts in health, nutrition, longevity, peak performance, so that we can bring you the tools to get you into the Thrive State. And what is that? That is the state of optimal being, of optimal performance, health, and longevity. And for all you newcomers, let me give you a gift. I've got tons of longevity and performance resources when you go to thrivestatestarter.com. And for all you loyal and returning listeners, thank you. Thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting and engaging. It really helps the show grow. So please continue to do that. Share this episode with your friends and family members, because I really think there's going to be value for you to be able to do the things that you want to do to make you feel alive again. That feeling of aliveness is actually translated into biochemical molecules that speaks to our cells to have them perform better for you. If you want to, and I'm super happy to announce the launch of our digital library. We've got tons of courses on longevity and performance, as well as a mental health academy where I interview people like Bruce Lipton, Dave Asprey, Jim Quick, Mariel Hemingway, and so many people on how to elevate your mental and emotional wellness. You can access all those resources at mythrivestate.com. And for being a loyal listener, let me gift you with a 50% discount on all our programs by using the code ThriveState50. There you have it. So please enjoy today's episode. It's an episode where we talk about all the struggles and challenges of actually achieving on the things that we want in life. I really hope it gives you a lot of value. Please enjoy today's podcast, and remember always, you are your best medicine. Welcome everybody to the Bucket List Challenge or Bucket List Mastermind. You are on this call because you want to live a life that is true to you. You have joined the Thrive State community and you want to be able to put into action the things that are going to light you up in life again. So I'm going to review our first two calls and then get questions from you guys to see your progress on how you guys are actually making progress on your bucket list. Why? Why the bucket list? Well, it's my hypothesis that through the bucket list, we could actually extend
our happiness, our health, our performance, and longevity. Why is that? Well, there's been numerous studies that have demonstrated that the sense of purpose and the sense of feeling alive actually adds 7 to 10 years extra in our life, that it preserves our telomeres, which is a marker for longevity. And what I know in terms of cellular health is when we put ourselves in these states where we start to feel alive and we are serving people, we are turning off a part of our brain that actually decreases our performance and also ages us quicker. So why does a bucket list allow us to tap into more aliveness and purpose? Well, it's really about taking action, because so many of us, including myself, 8 years ago, when I was just climbing the ranks of becoming a physician and out there working in the hospitals, that I was so trapped in this mode of succeeding, of performing, of producing, of being somebody that wasn't myself. And that actually drove disease in my body. And so I said no to so many things in my life because I felt like I had to take care of the people around me, that I had to pour myself into my work, and I put basically myself last. And I think for many of us who is trapped in what I call the default way of thinking and being, gets trapped in these states where they're just living their life unawake, and they are saying no to the things that make them feel alive. And so that's why 8 years ago, I was overweight. I had high blood pressure. I was on prescription medications. And part of the journey of rediscovering myself also led to improvements in my health, improvements in my performance. So why this bucket list? Well, these bucket list items are just items that we're putting down so that we feel joy, we feel inspired by them, and we start to take action on them. And as we cross things off our bucket list, it's going to remind us again about the things that intrinsically bring us joy, not like winning the lottery or not like, crossing off some big monetary gain, even though that should be things on your bucket list. There's no judgment there, but you're going to discover things that bring you to a state of joy just because. And if you could remember those things or rediscover who you are in those things, then you start to live a life that's more alive. And this process of a bucket list is really to really enjoy the journey of life again and to remember yourself again. And so that's why. Now, on the second call, I went through two major tactics of making your life feel more fulfilled. The first one really is putting yourself, visualizing yourself, achieving it. What are the emotions that you have to do to achieve that? What are the things you need to become? And actually feel those things, and then reverse engineer achieving them, and then breaking things down into small individual steps, putting yourself in the energy of the thing that you want to achieve, and then going after it. And then the second model is something called the impact framework, which is very, very similar, but that's really deciding who you are. I could tell you, when I was a doctor who was striving for success, I was somebody that, without saying it to other people, told myself that I wasn't worthy, I wasn't enough. And it drove basically the energy of chasing success that ultimately became disease in my body. But who are you? Are you joyous? Are you courageous? Are you confident? Are you loving? Are you compassionate? Are you empathetic? Are you joy? All these things, these values, you can embody despite what's going on the outside. So at any moment in life, you can employ this impact framework, which is your I am. And then P stands for pause. You could take a deep breath in and out and pause. Every time you get triggered, you feel anxious, you feel worried, you feel overwhelmed. Really put yourself into a state of calm, and then ask yourself the question, where is that coming from? Am I really in danger now? Because if not, you have a choice, which is C. You choose from your I am, those values that you dictate who you want to be. You choose from that place, and you finally take action. And the more and more we do that, we start rewiring our body and nervous system to take on these new things. So that was from the first two calls. And I just want to see how people are doing. Have you guys started on your bucket list before already? And are you guys having any questions, any hiccups in terms of living the life of this bucket list, living the journey. I know we have lots of questions that actually came in through chat, through our Facebook group, through email, and I think Leah is going to read them out. But for the people that are here live, Linda, Mocha, I hope I say your name right, Tony, Tammy, Valerie, Deborah, if you guys have questions and you guys want to ask them live here or ask them in the chat, feel free to put them in. And if there are not any that are jumping out, no worries. Sometimes after we start talking about things will start coming up. And so, Leah, why don't we start throwing in some questions? And if you do have some questions, raise your hand, put them down in the chat. We'll get to it. Today's call is really about what's been stopping you. Do you have any questions in terms of the processes in place to really start living the life that lights you up again? So, Leah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the first question that came in is, how do you use this concept of working on a bucket list and stay inspired among the day-to-day that still needs to be done? And some of those things may not always be very inspiring.
Staying inspired. Such a great question. I recommend definitely breaking up the day. Sometimes when we don't feel inspiration, we don't have time to pause to feel that inspiration. It's because we've let the day get ahead of us. And certainly I know as a doctor that still works in the hospital, that has concierge clients, that does keynote speaking, who's also a dad, who's also a partner and fiance, sometimes you're out there just doing. And when you're just sort of doing and checking off the things in life that you feel like you need to do, you don't really stop and be able to sense that gratitude for just being alive, being able to tap back into inspiration. And so what I challenge people, to have is more moments throughout the day. Potentially, if you could break your day up into like hour blocks, can you insert 5 to 15 minutes where you just have to yourself? And in that moment, we teach our breath work, or there's some free breath work resources at thrivestatestarter.com if you haven't downloaded it already. And we certainly have our online courses that teaches moments that you could actually change your state, and just include little bits of that throughout the day. And I challenge you, in those pockets of time where you're just to yourself, where you're giving to yourself, or you're asking yourself, whoa, I have this moment of being alive right now. That's pretty cool. And if you could tap back into those states, just really work that muscle of gratitude, I'm pretty sure you'll find that it is rejuvenating. It allows you to recover, and it doesn't allow you to think your whole day is just overwhelming and you're super overwhelmed. And so including small, tiny pockets throughout the day where you have to yourself, where you can give to yourself, where you can rejuvenate, is going to help you. That's why I created the Thrive State Activator. It's an online course that you guys can get at mythrivestate.com. Everybody in the community, you can get 50% off by using the code ThriveState50. But those are very tiny things that you can do throughout the day to just give time back to you and lift your energetic state. And the more we can practice lifting your energetic state, that's going to bring us more health, more happiness, and human potential. So I hope that's helpful. Another thing that's super helpful is within your bucket list item, create it, particularly when you have a busy day. Just create small things in that bucket list item, small little action steps that you can cross off so that you could still work them into a very busy schedule. And when you complete that thing, make sure you celebrate. And then you don't have to, you don't need to celebrate large. I just like to do a little dance to celebrate. And then it reinforces the action and the reward principle so that you can start to do more. So that's the answer to that question. Do we have a question from the audience, or do we have another question from you, Leah?
Yeah, another question is saying, do you have any advice for someone that their partner and family may not be aligned with what is on my bucket list?
Well, this is really truly the process of being vulnerable and open, because I found, certainly as a kid growing up, post, a son to immigrants, myself being an immigrant as well, that there were expectations of me, and I always said that I wanted to be potentially an actor or to go into the arts. And they're like, we didn't travel across the world, but you have become this thing here. you know? And so I remember getting that growing up. And then throughout life too, it's sometimes really saying no to yourself by maintaining a relationship. And we should stop doing that. The bucket list, remembering our purpose, remembering who we are, involves us being more vulnerable and sharing who we are. And I think if you have somebody that's unsupportive, it might feel kind of dangerous to be this vulnerable, but ultimately the more courage we have to be ourselves, the more we can step back into the energy, which is ourselves, which is the energy of flow, which is the energy of the thrive state. And so open and honest communication is vital, and share why doing this thing is important to you and how accomplishing these things enrich your life. And I think it's sometimes also important to understand people's apprehensions for your priorities. I could tell you that, for example, my parents were thinking, hey, you know what? There is no Asian people in arts and entertainment when I was growing up, and you're not going to be able to make any money from it. So they had certainly a fear. And your partner might have a fear of losing you to your new bucket list item or things like that. And so having that open and honest conversation, you can start to understand where they're coming from and potentially relax some of the apprehension that they have towards you. But it all starts with open and honest communication. And honestly, that is actually one of the to-do items in the bucket list. It's almost something that you have to train the muscle to communicate who you are so you could step into that more and more often. Next question, Leah.
We've actually had one come through in the chat, pardon me, from Deborah. A bucket list can easily get put lower on the list. How do you stay true to your dreams and honor the value of this perspective?
Such a great question. It's really about honoring yourself and doing little tiny things. It all starts with little tiny habits. Sometimes I know some people who are just so fed up with life that they said, you know what? I'm going to throw out everything in life and start anew because it's not working. But that's not going to work for everybody. And so on the other end of the spectrum, it's just really starting with small, tiny steps. So in your bucket list items, we've wrote down, you've got this huge goal. You reverse engineer them into small baby steps. And then each day, it's about doing these baby step items and then including it, prioritizing these baby step items into your day so that you honor them. And it's about building momentum to the things that light you up and are a priority to you, and starting to say no and have boundaries of the things that really isn't you. And for some people, they could just say, hey, I'm ready to throw everything out and start creating a new life. But for other people, it's going to require just taking baby steps to take the initial yes to the actions that goes towards their life, and then building on that. Because you start to build that and you start to say, yeah, that feels good. I want to do more of that. And I want to do this and I want to do that. That inspiration and the joy, that's what should be propelling you to your next actions. And it's really important to be able to just give that time. And again, what I said earlier on, the very first question, is giving times throughout the day to just give to yourself. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there, you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine
that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You can find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast. And maybe that time during your day where you give to yourself is the time that allow you to take that one or two options, every 5 or 15 minutes on every hour, you can just do that little nugget for yourself. And once you start to build this, you'll start to see, you're going to build energetic momentum to the things that start to light you up. And all of a sudden, a life that felt like it was just like Groundhog Day every single day start to feel like it's more alive. Great question, Deborah. Thank you.
Another one that's come in is, how are bucket list items any different from regular goals, or are they actually the same?
Yes, great question. How's a bucket list item the same or different from regular goals? Well, it's really about action and the journey of life. They're basically all the same, but the bucket list, the purpose of the bucket list is to remember who we are. The purpose of the bucket list is to help us do things that make us feel alive. And so the bucket list items is, I would probably say, is goals that are really testing you to remember who you are versus just a regular goal. But they're both in the same. This is all about just taking action and then discovering who you are in your actions. I did this task that allowed me to get $10,000 more a month. That was a goal. Cool. How did it make you feel? Did you feel more alive, or was it just neutral? Oh, I joined a class where I started to do improv and I really felt like I was in flow in improv. Whoa, cool. That made me feel alive. I'm curious about it. I'm more inspired by doing something like that. Oh, cool. You learned something about yourself. So all these are, and the rest is semantics, is really taking a life of action and trying things out, and then trying to filter out the things that puts you in states of flow, of joy, of inspiration, of creativity, and doing more of those things in your life.
That's so great. Like, what I'm hearing with that, really thinking from the doing into the being.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Another question has come in. What if none of my bucket list items are achievable in 30 days?
Well, I would probably say if all your bucket list items are achievable in 30 days, then you don't have a big enough bucket list. The bucket list is really creating a life that inspires you, that makes you feel alive. And so this is a journey that you can continue to do throughout life. And I want you to dream those big goals that seem ridiculous, but that it lights you up. So I implore you to create these things. And these things aren't going to be able to be accomplished in 30 days. The things that can be accomplished in 30 days are just the things to build up that energetic momentum. So you start taking action on some of those bigger things. Remember, the bucket list is just going to remind us about enjoying the journey. And therefore, as you just start designing them, as you start doing them, you're like, oh, I'm starting to find joy, creativity, inspiration, and aliveness again in doing them. And so that is the goal of the bucket list. So it's good to have one or two items that you can complete in 30 days, but I challenge you to have big dreams about your life, about your relationships, about where you want to travel, about the intellectual, mental, and physical person you want to become. Have them be big. And have them take longer than 30 days, months, years, potentially even decades for them to come into fruition. Have all of those in your bucket list so that you can live a life that inspires you.
One that came in as you were talking about breaking down into the actionable steps is, how do I figure out how to break down my items into daily action steps? They all feel too big and I don't know where to start.
So daily action steps.
just start to reverse engineer and say, in that process, what do I need to do just before? And if you start that iterative process of what do I just need to do just before that, you'll hit a spot where the next thing to do is actually rather simple. Say, for example, your bucket list item is to read, a book a week for 6 months straight. If that was your item, then potentially what can you do before? Maybe it's, reading half a book a week. Maybe it's reading a page. Maybe it's just researching a book that you want to read, or maybe just picking up a book from the store. If a book from the store is too much work for you, maybe it's just finding something on Amazon. You could always break it down to simpler and simpler steps. Now, those first early steps, I find for most actions to take, might just be some research. It just might be hopping on your computer or your phone so that you can start doing some research on it. It might just be, thinking of a couple of people that you can call to help you on this, in this process, and just writing down those names. So whatever the thing is, just break it down to its very small, intimate, elemental piece. And then from there, you're like, oh, okay, I've actually taken that step. And my friends, I will guarantee you that as you start to take steps, the path will open up as you start taking the steps. It's very difficult to think of how you're going to get to that point. And oftentimes it's not going to look exactly the way you pictured it to be. But once you start taking the steps, you're meeting people. Ideas start to open up. You're starting to turn on your reticular activating system in your brain, and your brain starts to focus on you completing that task and allow new ideas to come in. And so breaking it down to those small, simple steps is going to build energetic momentum. That's going to activate your reticular activating system, which is going to bring in more energy into the system for you to continue to do the work and get your task accomplished.
Great. So we have a community member that is actually doing the Bucket List Mastermind using the Bucket List Journal that you've recommended.
Yeah.
So they're digging into the why. And they're saying, if I can't think of a why behind a list item other than because I want to or want it, should I find a different item?
Aha. The answer there is a surprising no. Nope. I want to just remind people that the purpose of the bucket list is to encapsulate your dreams and desires. And the mere fact that you just want to is all you need, because us wanting something or desiring something are potentially things that we said no to because we felt like we needed to live life a certain way to, make our parents, society, and fulfill all these expectations of us. So an item on your list doesn't need some grandiose why beyond, I just want to. If it brings you joy, if it brings you excitement, if it piques your curiosity, if it inspires you, those should basically be the leading emotions that drive you to say yes and to do the things. And along the way, if you discover a why, great and perfect. Don't let finding a why stop you from your bucket list. Now, if you find some why along the way, then perfect. What I'll tell you is this: the why will almost reveal itself to you, because when you start doing the things that bring you joy, that inspire you, that pique your interest, all those things, you just become a more alive person. And once you start to become more of a live person, you're naturally just going to want to share this energy and joy with other people. Well, when you combine your passion with sharing with the world, that's a big why right there. So, it's a way of rediscovering your purpose and for you living your purpose. And so just say yes to the things that elevate your energy. And I think the why will follow that.
Along that thread of using the journal, talking about accountability. How do I get accountability if I'm too embarrassed to ask my family or friends, or if they just don't want to help hold me accountable?
Yeah. So if you're sharing your bucket list with family or friends feels daunting, if you're unable to provide the support you need, look beyond your immediate circle. You've got people right now on this call, like 20, 21 people on this call right now, and then hundreds of people on the Thrive State community, which you guys could join, if you haven't already, at facebook.com/groups/Thrive State. And you've got a community of people who are saying yes to life again, saying yes to their dreams again. So reach out to them, and you'll find people that have similar hobbies and interests and things like that, so that you can actually get there. And then don't be afraid to reach out to professional coaches. And there's some accountability apps that are out there. So it takes a lot. You certainly have to be very vulnerable to ask for somebody to be an accountability partner. But that's the boldness that we must take to start, bringing these things in. Your bucket list items, your dreams are going to require you to take bold, uncomfortable action, and so that's one of the things. Reach outside your inner circle, go and look into groups. Let's say you want to achieve that one thing. That one thing is, I don't know, traveling to Egypt. So there's probably some Reddit forums or different things that are out there of people that are interested in Egypt, for example, and then you just drop into there. And you'll find yourself, as you drop into those communities, they are already enlivened from that. So you're going to get a lot of brand new energy once you, reach out to communities that are out there that already share your same interest.
This is a great question. I love this one that's come in. Is I like to cross things off of the list and have that feeling of accomplishment when I finish something. If I get through all 100 items, do I try and think of more, or when are we ever actually done?
Aha, my friends. This is the whole point. The whole point of a bucket list is, remember that the journey is the reward. And when you're saying yes to bucket list and living life in that way, you're really saying, I'm creating every day, every moment, so that I feel alive in life again. And so crossing them off, I think, are great. But I think once you start doing them, once you start crossing things off, 100 things off, you're like, wow, there was a difference in my life force energy when I was living life that were based on routines and how I thought I should live my life, versus living life that inspires me and doing things that elevate my energy. And I think once you get there, you're going to start coming up with different things in your life, but it might not even be about that anymore. Once you probably get to 100, you might be like, you know what? I'm really in touch with the things that make me feel alive. And I'm very now intuitive to how I want to just live my life and flow. So it might not even require you to take off a bucket list anymore. You might just automatically start putting things down, like, I just want to do things that make me feel more alive. So that's it. But it's never truly done. It's really about creating a beautiful life. It's about creating a journey, enjoying the journey, being inspired by the journey. And so I hope that answers your question there, but great question. So we have
All right, that is everything
one or
that's
two
come
more
in.
questions. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Well, we ended on time then. So thank you, everybody who has been a part of the Bucket List Challenge. If you haven't already, introduce yourselves in the Facebook group and really share your wins. If you post on the Facebook group, if I'm available, I would answer you directly. I just want you to realize that you have the power within yourself, without paying tons of money, to remember who you are, and living that way, living more alive, living more connected, living more with love and joy. That's who you are. And if you do more of those things, you're going to unlock the health, the happiness, and the human potential that's in your life. And so, thank you. I think from Vern and Vidya, you guys had questions, but we will answer them on the next call. So feel free to leave your questions in the Facebook group or email the team. We'll get them answered then. I'm so glad you guys have all joined. The next two calls, we're going to actually have special guests. The next call, we're going to have a person, Dr. Jeff Spencer, which is a former Olympic cyclist, talking about fears and how to overcome fears and to become elite in what we do. And then the following week, we have my good friend, Joe Huff, who created the Experiential Billionaire. And he talks about how the experiences on our life is what makes our life rich, not the money that we have in our bank account. So all these super important guests and calls we're going to have in the upcoming bucket list. So Thank you guys for joining today. And remember, always, you are your best medicine. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breathwork, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.